Hi, this is the Ridge Runner with woodlandsurvival.com with another Pine Home primitive skills moment. Well, it's not really primitive skills, but that's pretty much what I use these things for. I've been thinking a lot lately about the past and what went on there and what got me to where I am today. And one of the things that happened was the fact that I will tell you a little bit of something personal. I didn't have a very easy childhood. I had a stepfather who was very difficult to deal with, and also worked for the school system, so during the summer he was off when I was off. And consequently, I felt like the best place to be is not around him, so I found myself heading off into the woods. It is really, combined with my grandfather's interest in the outdoors, what got me into bushcraft in general. At the time in my life, I didn't have a lot of equipment, a lot of money to get equipment, and people weren't really willing to buy me the type of equipment that I would have needed anyway. So I made do with stuff I could find at surplus stores and whatnot. I had an old rucksack that came from some Eastern European country. Nice canvas bag, actually. I kind of wish I still had it. I had a cheap mess kit that I probably came from Kmart or Walmart. Actually, probably most likely Kmart at the time. A cook can made out of a coffee can, of course, and a few other odds and ends, magnesium fire starter, that sort of thing. But of all those things that I used to have, these two items here are what have managed to survive to now. And old gear, you know, there's something about it. This doesn't look like the most high-tech gear in the world. I know that. But old gear seems to have some kind of, it brings back more than just just brings back memories. It brings more than just, the equipment, the functionality of the equipment. It also brings back a lot of, what brought you to this point. Now, a lot of people go, okay, well, I got myself the newfangled Bark River knife, for instance, and I got that Bark River knife, and I don't need this old knife anymore. Well, my view is not to become a hoarder, but on the other hand, it is kind of nice to know that, to know where you came from. And sometimes it is educational to see what worked and what didn't. Well, I can tell you, as much as I could say that this is old gear, it worked. It did everything I needed it to do, and it didn't cost a lot. That's a lot of where my concept for camping with no budget has come from. This actually is a relatively expensive knife now. It's an RH-36. These were made for the military and for the civilian market, for camping and whatnot. I believe back in the 40s and 50s. It rattles. Okay, it's been put through the ringer by me. Those marks are mine to let people know that it's my knife. I don't do that anymore, but I used to. But this thing performed admirably. I used it for batoning, for splitting, for dressing out game. It served its purpose really well. Now, the sheath, quite obviously, is not from that knife. They didn't make these back in the 50s. I got this at a summer camp I was at. Somebody was throwing it away because they'd broken the knife that it came with. And I'm sure the knife was a piece of crap that it came with. But the sheath seems to have been a very durable tool. Now, everything here has memories. And that's really what I want to get to. This chip came out of a bone while I was cleaning at my first deer. I still don't know how it happened. It might have actually been a piece of metal that had gotten stuck in the deer at one point and just grew in there. I don't know. But, I mean, the knife still works with the chip, and I continue to, and I've actually been known to carry this even recently. The sheath, I slept too close to the fire one night, and it melted, started smoking. Mind you, it was attached to me when that happened, so it was quite warm. But I still use the sheath, and it's a memory that I have, and I'll always have that locked in my memory of that particular campfire. And it was a delightful campfire other than that particular incident. This hatchet is a special thing to me. It's still by far one of the finest hatchets I've ever used, even though it looks like the Dickens. I found this hatchet quite by accident. I didn't have the money to buy a decent hatchet, and I had one of those Walmart specials that didn't keep an edge worth a darn, and would pretty much it didn't do this job at all. I would have to use a baton to get it to split anything. And I was walking through the woods and literally kicked this thing. It was in the leaves and in the dirt. And when I got it, the edge was much wider. Originally, when this was made, it was probably out here somewhere. And what had happened was that was all rusted. I mean, it was just destroyed. You could tell the whole hatchet was covered in a serious amount of rust at one point. You know, lots of oiling and maintaining have kept it from rusting anymore. And all of the reprofiling that was done on this hatchet was done on a rock in my camp. There was this big flat rock that I would use to sharpen. Well, I sharpened this, and I had a couple of implements that I made out there that I sharpened, and I sanded wood with it, and it was a pretty good piece of stone. It's still there as far as I know. But this hatchet came out to be razor sharp, especially when I combined it with this, which was a Christmas present from my grandparents. This is a sharpening implement. I'm not going to take it off of here. But it's one of those ceramic sharpening elements, and it works really well. And I managed to bring this thing up to a really good edge after reprofiling it. None of this stuff costs a lot of money. Well, man, forgetting this here. This is just, I put it down because I didn't want it in my hand anymore. The knife itself, I got at something called the Remsen Barn Festival over in Remsen, New York. And at the time, there was a lot of like antique-y type people there. And it was a kind of more of a junk dealer that was there. And he had this with a rotten leather sheath. And I got it because I liked the knife at the time, and I could afford it at the whopping $2 that I paid for it. I believe couldn't have been that much more than that because I didn't have a lot of money at the time. It was, what, 13, 14 years old. But I brought it home, and the sheath that I grabbed from Camp Unirondack managed to fit it. So, of course, I retired the leather sheath that came with and switched it over to this one, and it's lived in there ever since. Now, the point I'm trying to make here is that this is where I get my concept that you don't have to spend a ton of money. You can go to an antique shop and buy an inexpensive old-fashioned sheath knife and still get a fine blade. This is the proof. I've used this thing for years. It is still, even though it technically has been retired, it's still a very functional knife, and one that I could take out in the woods tomorrow and would not hesitate to use. And I got this when I was 13, and I'm 37 years old. Well, going to be 37 years old. And just to give you an idea how long this thing's been in service, I mean, it's been around a while. And it was, of course, in service long before I was alive. So basically, the long and short of it is this: when you're out and about and you're at the store and you're thinking, "Oh, I need this new thing. I need this high-tech piece of equipment." If you've got something that works, be very careful before you replace it. You know, and when you do, don't just toss your old gear out of hand. Now, obviously, you don't want to be having 50,000 knives and 50,000 axes, because every time you replace the axe, you want to keep the other one out of nostalgia. But old gear is not necessarily bad gear. And I just thought I'd share that with you quickly and show you what I used to use. Incidentally, nice thing about this axe, just so you know, it has if you look, it's rounded, which when you're skinning is really nice, because you can take this and you can put it between the skin, and you literally, almost like what they talk about fisting the skin off, where you put your fist in there and you push the skin away from the meat. Well, you can use this to do the same job, and then of course there's the ability to hold it like this for scraping. So it's as you can tell, it's very easy and very intuitive for me to be able to move my hand around on this axe. So it's an old friend. I did put hockey tape on the grip. It had when I got it, might have been hockey tape that had rotted off of it, and electrical tape and a bunch of other stuff, and I used it just as it is for a long time, and then I eventually started taping it up myself. This is actually a recent upgrade of hockey tape, if you can call hockey tape an upgrade. But anyway, thought I'd share that with you, and until next time, this is the Ridge Runner signing off.